past few years, we have seen so many actors and voice actors and creatives be canceled simply for having their own opinions on the world, and Ken Masters' voice actor Reuben Langdon, of course, just a few years ago was completely canceled, taken off of several projects, even though he was an iconic actor in this role, but he now is saying that he was actually recast over politics and the infamous Newsweek hit piece. I have a few things to show off, but before we get into the topic, if you enjoy the content I create, check out the links in the description, follow me on social media, and consider supporting through Patreon or via YouTube memberships. Now, of course, this situation has been slowly but surely evolving over the past few years, and this article from Niche Gamer does recap it pretty well. It's been some time since we learned longtime Ken Masters voice actor Reuben Langdon was recast. At the time, neither Capcom nor Langdon commented on the decision until now. I remember when this happened, of course, there were many people who were extremely upset, who were threatening, of course, to boycott upcoming games, and it was just a sad situation overall because we didn't know the exact details, but we did all have a rough idea simply because of politics. Whenever you are an individual who works for a larger company, if you have your own opinions that do not go with and mesh with exactly what the company wants you to say or the stances they want their actors to take, unfortunately, you get fired, and that is exactly what happened here. To recap, 3 years ago, articles from Newsweek and other commentary on his personal beliefs were taken completely out of context, which he has now confirmed led to him being dropped as the voice of Ken Masters. Of course, we're talking about something that happened years ago, but his beliefs were taken completely out of context. He previously appeared on a podcast with YouTubers, and they discussed a number of hot issues, including Me Too, Black Lives Matter, and allegations towards, of course, Vic Mignogna, but Langdon was later asked for an interview by Newsweek to clarify his statements, to which he agreed, but when he said he couldn't comment on the Vic situation, an article later came out that lambasted Langdon as a right-wing extremist. So they invited him on for a, follow-up interview for a previous article that he did, and they took not only that previous article they did with him, completely took it out of context, and because he would not comment on a situation that at the time was a pretty, intense one, many people were talking about it, they decided to write a hit piece on him. And if you don't know, Reuben Langdon is very well known in the industry and also to Capcom fans. I mean, he was the voice of Ken Masters from all of his iterations from Street Fighter 4 in 2008 all the way up to Super Smash Bros. Ultimate. But this Newsweek article came out and was basically taking things I had said in the interview out of context or with no context and just saying Reuben said this and that about Black Lives Matter and hashtag Me Too, and that I'm a right-wing extremist, that I'm a UFO alien believer, a crazy nutcase. But then he noted that only a few months earlier, Newsweek actually did a very positive article and interview with him about his, opinions on the possibility of extraterrestrial life, which is confusing when compared to their other posts taking those comments out of context. So literally, they did an interview with him inviting him to talk about topics like extraterrestrial life, and then only months later completely used that against him and called him a crazy conspiracy theorist, even though they asked him to talk about that in the first place. That is the most disingenuous bullshit I have ever heard. Continuing on though, after this, people went on to contact Capcom regarding the negative and out of context reporting that was done, which allegedly prompted the developer to recast Ken Masters. So of course, no matter how many people actually wrote to Capcom, they didn't care. It says some people wrote Capcom, particularly the producer Ono-san. He said he saw it and I guess he lost his shit. He didn't understand the nuances and didn't bother to reach out to me to ask what's going on. He got super scared and actually called. I remember this very clearly because this was a few days before E3 started. My partner called me and goes, "Reuben, what the F did you do?" And I'm like, "What do you mean I didn't do anything? You don't realize how much damage you've done. You just lost us the Street Fighter gig because of that Newsweek article the company Just Cause Productions that I was no longer a part of actually lost a multi-million-dollar gig, which is insane." So he was not even working with Just Cause Productions, but they still ended up getting let go. And not only that, again, Reuben ended up not being able to voice Ken Masters again. That is just insane to me. Despite the decision to recast him and drop their mocap company already being made, Langdon and others reportedly tried to arrange a meeting with Ono-san to clarify and hopefully remedy the situation. And he says, "I tried to get a meeting so I could sit down and explain everything that happened, that this was all taken out of context, and that this was not the case. It was a hit piece from the Newsweek guy, but he wouldn't have it. He wouldn't even take the meeting. It was crazy," which definitely is not a good look, at least to me, and I'm sure a lot of you. If somebody is getting canceled and ultimately is going to be let go from a project, you at least deserve a sit-down conversation. They at least deserve a sit-down conversation, because I completely understand that, sometimes, yes, things online are taken out of context and look completely insane, but when you have someone like Reuben Langdon, who you have worked with for so many years at that point, they deserve to be able to tell you their side of the story. Unfortunately, we've heard so many cases on social media over the years, like with Gina Carano, for instance. She was let go from Disney and, of course, her PR firm, but she didn't, get a private message or a private email. She literally found out because of the smear campaign they had already started on social media. People are human beings, okay? They deserve to at least get some kind of face-to-face explanation, but instead, that is not what happened here. And it also says that he went on to confirm that despite being recast, he's still playing Dante in Capcom's other hit franchise, Devil May Cry, which I guess is some sort of saving grace. I'm very happy to hear that, because of course he does play a fantastic Dante. So many people are happy to hear this, but we don't really know, unfortunately, how long that is going to last. They've canceled him once. It wouldn't surprise me if they canceled him again, especially with him coming out now and actually talking about this. I bet there's going to be so much more backlash and so much more heat on him again. A few months after that, the Devil May Cry director called me up and said, "Hey, can you come back to Japan and do a mocap? We're going to do a special edition of Devil May Cry." So when I went back and I asked him and my partner too, "What's the deal? How come you guys didn't flip out over the Newsweek article?" And they were like, "Yeah, we looked into it and it's fine." So the Devil May Cry team looked into it and saw what a bunch of bullshit it was, including Itsuno-san. They did the research and totally validated that I didn't say anything to offend anybody, or I wasn't whatsoever what Newsweek tried to make me out as. And this is why companies cannot just blindly react to social media outrage and social media drama. They actually need to research situations. They actually need to look into them. And unfortunately, that is not what Capcom did initially. It doesn't sound like there are any plans to bring him back, and it doesn't sound like, he's really wanting to go back at this point, since he is, again, still working on Devil May Cry. It's not like his career is over. Far from it. He's still got several things that he is working on, but it's just so pathetic to see a company the size of Capcom not actually reach out. But ultimately, it also doesn't particularly sound like they even really care, because Capcom is a company that's heavily invested in the ESG score, and they do want to, try to be a newer, modern company. They definitely, over the past few years, have made some extremely questionable decisions and also statements. It's just so sad to see such a big company like Capcom end up, firing actors and recasting actors over things like their personal beliefs, opinions, their personal politics, instead of just accepting everybody is going to be different, everybody's going to have their own opinions. That's not what's here, not what happened. It will be interesting to see if Reuben Langdon, of course, comes out and says anything else, since he is receiving a ton of positive feedback and a ton of support on social media right now because of his recent statements. Of course, only time will tell, but for now, that's all that I really had to discuss in this video. Let everyone know your thoughts in the comments section down below. If you enjoyed this, give it a like, and if you didn't, give it a dislike. I appreciate your support either way, but I will talk to you all again in the next video really soon.